Syracuse football is 5-0, but this season not yet a success. That's my take. We'll discuss that, maybe some more on today's podcast. It's Locked On Syracuse. It's right now.
Are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Matt Bonaparte, Owen Valentine with you on Thursday morning. Thanks for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. And today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Owen and I both amped for this episode, partly because Aaron Judge just hit 61 at the time of recording, partly because we get to talk Syracuse football again, Owen.
Whoop!
Whoop indeed.
Whoop!
SU potentially 5-0 after this week. I don't know if I said 5-0 before. They're not currently 5-0. They're 4-0. But pretty much going to be 5-0. I mean, if they lost to Wagner, the sky would be falling. But that's kind of what we're talking about today. Is this season already considered a success just because of where expectations were preseason to where that they are now? That question is a little bit packed, but at the same time, you could answer it with a couple words. I'm going to opt not to do that and instead say, remember preseason when this schedule even first came out. So basketball season is back in May or April or whenever it came out. And everyone was looking at the schedule saying, I don't know if we can point out more than 2 wins. Those wins obviously being Wagner and UConn. That came out of plenty of people's mouths when they looked at the schedule. Definitely a tougher schedule than they had last year. And, you know, it wasn't outlandish to say that back then. But now with what we know, that Syracuse is just kind of a juggernaut through the first 5 weeks, and maybe not the prettiest team out there, but one that wins games. They have just skyrocketed expectations, and the potential for this team is through the roof. So, Owen, do you believe this to already be a successful season for SU football, despite there only being 4 wins on the docket?
So I'm going to have a little bit of an extended answer here. I think, yes, this is a successful season at this point in time. My thing with success and measuring it, though, right now, is that success is consistently changing, and that level of success is almost fluid, if you will. I think it's something that continues to change and adjusts and adapts based on, you know, the current environment, the things that are going on in the program, the things that are going on in terms of shifting expectations, right? If you get and say this incredible job, family life is amazing, perfection, right? Everything is outstanding, you might be seen as successful. Say the next day, you quit your job, you say goodbye to your family, you never talk to anyone again, you sit on the couch and do nothing, you're no longer successful, right? So even though right now I am seeing Syracuse as a success in terms of this season, that can still shift. Like, it has to be sustained. There's still more that you have to see for this to be an overall successful season. Right now, I'm saying 4-0, theoretically 5-0 is 100% a successful season, but is a successful season thus far. There is still a lot that can happen, a lot that needs to happen for the entire season to be deemed a success. Even if I will go, you know, hand up, I think we were talking about this off the air yesterday. I had them going 4-8 on the year. You had them going 5-7 on the year. In terms of my mind, they're at their 4 wins already. So I have to say this is a success in that they're doing better than I thought. But right now, the success metric is shifting. And there's now more that needs to happen for this to be a full successful season, given the fact that after you start 4-0 and probably get to 5-0, your expectations have to shift. And that way, the success metric and what defines success will shift as well.
Yeah, and the season has been full of plenty of surprises. You know, nobody expected them to win 4 games, let alone beat Purdue, beat Louisville game 1. I mean, it's been a
Yeah.
lot of surprises so far. Not all surprises that have been good. Another surprise has been that Sean Tucker doesn't look as sharp as we all thought he might be. His 3.6 yards per carry are down from last year. I mean, the guy was an animal last year, rushing at 6.1 yards per carry, which is just an
Still
obnoxious
nuts to
number.
think
Like, he
about.
was
Yeah.
so good every time he touched the ball. But also, it's early in the season, so we don't know. Another surprise that was good is Schrader has been better, despite the last couple of games where he looked worse than he did in the first couple. But still, he's been good, or at least better overall. In the defense, I don't know if that's surprised anybody. They've all been fantastic, and I think a lot of people expected them to be. But my next question kind of stems off of what you just said and about our preseason expectations for this team. You said 4-8. I said 5-7. Say they win tomorrow or win this week's game. They enter next week 5-0. And then, like we all know, they hit a huge gauntlet. They go number 10 NC State at home, to number 5 Clemson on the road, back home against Notre Dame, then back out against number 24 Pittsburgh. Then they come back to host number 23 Florida State. Then they go back out to host number 22 Wake Forest. That's a crazy 6-game stretch that we've covered before. But say they lose every single one of those games, hypothetically. They go 0-6 in that stretch, and they are 5-6 heading into the final game. That's not out of the cards. Do I think it's going to happen? They probably got to win somewhere in there. But they could go 0-6.
Correct.
How much of a disappointment would the season be then? Because beginning of the year, that's kind of what everybody expected. But now you've gone 4-0, probably 5-0. And then you go 0-6? How are people going to be thinking about Dino Babers? Where's his job security going to be? Probably fine, but in the eyes of the fans, the court of public opinion, I bet they're going to be calling for it. And if they lose their last 7 and they lose that game to Boston College and they don't make a bowl game, how are people going to feel?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it is something because of how it's not entirely realistic, but how feasible, I guess I will say. Like if you told me that they go 0-6 in the next 6 games, I could believe you, is what I'm getting at with that. Like it's not something that is outlandish to think could possibly happen. And that is why I think it's a really worthwhile conversation to have right now, because if they get to 5-6 after starting 5-0, then I think we definitely redefine this from being a successful season. Because of the opportunity that was there and the chances that this was to be, that return season that, come to prominence-ish again type year where you're, in the upper portion of the ACC and you are competitive in these games. I think in terms of, a success metric, you cannot be 5-6 and call this a successful season. So even though right now, very much on this is a successful year so far, they're on the track for success. It can shift, and I would very much look back on this and say that I stand with what I said at the time, that right now this has been successful, but it is not a successful year if you are at 5-6. And now that I'm talking, I feel like, did I miss the question as a whole?
No, I think
okay.
that you hit it.
I was talking. I wasn't exactly sure. I'm still in Aaron Judge hit 61 mode. But yeah, I think when all is said and done, like you need a win in that stretch. And realistically, one win in that stretch.
Well, if they're a real team, they win one of those, at least like 1 or 2 of those games. Right?
I was going to say, if you are legitimately the 30th best team in the country, which is where the AP poll has you right now, if you're legitimately the 30th best team in the country, you should win 2 of those 6 games.
Yeah, at least. And you probably have to win that Notre Dame game. And people are going to say, oh, Notre Dame, like they might be bad, but Syracuse is still going to get killed by them. I don't know.
That's a litmus game.
I'm not worried about Notre Dame. I'm really not worried about Notre Dame right now.
No, but I mean, that is because of the way Notre Dame has played this year. Like that is going to be a very telling game.
Yeah, totally. I mean, they're going to play them tough, 100%.
Yeah.
But I of those games, they're the least one I'm worried about of that 6-game stretch, excluding Boston College at the end. Okay, let's take a quick break, and then we will continue this conversation. But first, let me tell you about BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for football betting info this season. Find all of the latest player developments, team matchups, news podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sport wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. That's a great graphic BetOnline gave us.
That's where the game starts.
It's true. Shout out to commenter Noah Searson, by the way, for asking a question like this. He basically asked in our comments about assuming if they fall short of 8 wins, is that disappointing? So we'll answer your question, friend of the pot. Yeah, so I'm going to give my answer now. And first I'll say that I'm going to say if they go 5-7, it would be a different reaction if they went 5-7 like they did last year and they won a game, lost a game, won a game, lost a game. I think people were going to be way more angry if they lose out right now.
Yeah.
After the Wagner game. Say they win the Wagner game, my head is already past the Wagner game. In my head they've already won it. Which isn't a good place to be. That's trap game territory. Anyway, say they win the Wagner game and then they lose 7. I think the fans are more angry then than if they won a game, lost a game, won a game, lost a game, and ended up going 5-7 that way. I think it is a disappointment and it is a failure if you go 5-7 either way. And people were coming into this season saying Dino's got to go if they don't make to a bowl game. People came into last year saying that, and the year before that saying that. So that's the situation you're in if you're Dino Babers. You know that he knows he has to make a bowl game. And FBI says Syracuse is a 99% chance, but at the same time, you look at that 6-game stretch and you're like, I don't know, they could lose every one of those games.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like they have, John Elway quarterback here. Like that. Like, the story is that Syracuse played 2 solid games, one against UConn, and then limped through a game against Purdue that they won thanks to a lot of calls and some luck, and then a really nice play at the end, and then just barely got through a Virginia game, even tighter than the Purdue game. So you've basically got a cupcake game and a bye, and we're going to really find, like I said, I thought week 4 would tell us, and week 3 would tell us who Syracuse is. And maybe I was right about that. Maybe I was wrong. Now I kind of believe that it will be the game against NC State that tells us who they are. And really, if they come out in that game firing and they're a respectable team, then we're like, okay, they're real. And if not, then they're the same old Syracuse.
Yeah, it really is like every game in the next 6 weeks. I am speaking past Wagner, and come at me if they lose. I don't think anyone would fault me for going past Wagner right now. But every game in the next 6 weeks is going to tell you something about Syracuse football, good or bad. It will be incredibly telling of what this team is, what they're made of. Is this scheme legit? Is the offense that Robert and I and has in place, is that as legit as we think it might be? Or is Syracuse, the beneficiaries of playing 2 of their 3 weakest ACC opponents in the first 4 weeks, and then having a UConn in there and a Purdue team that is maybe good, maybe not good? Is Syracuse just a virtue of they played, the easiest 5 games on their schedule in the first 5 weeks? And then when they played a real team, it's not going to work. But this NC State game will tell me a lot. I don't think, if Syracuse loses by 2 scores to NC State, fine. I don't think that puts me in a different spot than I do right now. I think, Syracuse football should lose to a presumed, maybe they lose to Clemson, they dip down, top 15 team I don't think I'm astonished or surprised or baffled, barring, the ugliest 2-touchdown game ever. In terms of Syracuse. Like, I think that that's fine. But I think that, when you follow that up and you then play Clemson, like, can you build and can you continue to grow and improve? I always think, and now I'm all over the place today. I apologize. But I think back to sort of preseason when Dino was talking about how this is the first time that they're going to play Louisville at full strength with a healthy team and everyone's there and everyone's ready. This is a team that, as we've talked about, has lost 4 starters through 4 weeks, and they've played the easy portion of their schedule. They're going to be playing against dogs and far better recruits, far bigger players, far stronger players. This is a team that really cannot afford to get banged up anymore, which makes this an even more difficult task. And I think that you really have to look at what are they able to do in this stretch. And one of the biggest things, and it seems obvious, but their health is a massive factor in their ability to either go winless in this stretch or sneak a game in this stretch or win 2 games in that stretch or even do a little bit more. Health is going to be absolutely paramount as a deciding factor in Syracuse's ability to possibly win these games, but at the least stay competitive and stay involved in these football games.
Yeah, I think we're going to hear a lot from Dino towards the end of that stretch, and even at the beginning before they get into it, about how grueling it is going to be, and then about how grueling it was when it's over. Because and he'll be right about that. He'll probably have some crazy analogy about how the cake was baked or something, but he's going to be right. I mean, those 6 games are going to be tough, man, and Syracuse is going to be going through the ringer on that.
Yeah, let's do a little predict your analogy right now. I'm putting you on the spot.
Predict my analogy?
Predict your
it's
analogy.
Impossible to predict an analogy. I'd have to he thinks of the craziest things. What was the one he said last week?
Right now, the recurring one is the train has left the station. We can't get anyone else on.
He does like train has left the station. So
yeah, he's used that a couple times.
If we didn't hear about the train again throughout the rest of the season, I'd kind of be shook. So maybe through the rest of that, he's going to be like, it's a train and you got to put more coal in the engine. And that's what we're doing right now. Like, I bet you we get one of those from him.
Yeah. Oh God. We will stay on the cake train that you just talked about, and we'll throw train in there, I guess, as well. Sometimes you're baking a cake and it calls for a stick of butter, and all you have is oil.
That's pretty good.
It's gonna be something
that oil works. It works.
And sometimes you're gonna throw some applesauce in there. There's that healthy recipe that you might be trying to home.
And then he'll look at Nate and be like, "I know you like that, Nate."
Right? Sometimes you don't have any butter in the fridge. We're not going to the store.
Regardless of if you like Dino as a coach or not, I love the guy as a dude. I think he's awesome.
I think he's no telling what analogy will come out next.
But that's pretty much my take on that. Might have to go for a short episode today. I do want to shout out another commenter before we do, who was asking for shorter episodes. Not because he didn't like them, but hold on, I got to find him.
More manageable chunks.
He said, "Hey guys, I like your podcast and find them better and more informed than other SU sports attempts that have been made. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. He said, my problem is finding time to listen to half an hour one sitting. Could you do 3 10s or 2 15 shows? Well, Swamp Fox 15, this is for you. We're not exactly giving you what you want, but we are going to give you a 20-minute episode, which is usually what we give, or around them, a little bit shorter. You got something, Owen, before you want to leave?
Before we leave, what would you say, what record constitutes a successful season after a 5-0 start? Given the schedule, given everything, what record would you say you would end this season, given the way this year has started? What record would you say this was a successful season?
Honestly, if they make a bowl game at this point, it's on the way to success, and that's enough for me.
Okay. I want 7
Take it 1 year at a time. 7-5 is cool.
7-5.
I'd like that.
7-5. I don't care if you win or lose a bowl game, but I think 7-5 would be cool.
All right. Well, you know what else would be cool? If you made Locked On ACC your second listen after you made this your first listen. Thanks for making it your first listen, by the way. Go listen to Candace Cooper and the local experts of Locked On ACC. They take you across the ACC in 30 minutes. Make Locked On ACC your second listen every day. I'm Matt Bonaparte. He's on Valentine. We're back tomorrow to preview Syracuse v. Wagner inside the Dome on Saturday. We'll see you then. Peace.